Hola, greetings and salutations, folks. It is I, your host, Cinema Kane, coming back at you today, and today we are talking Kevin Smith's The 4:30 movie. If you know me, you know two things. One is I love Kevin Smith movies for the most part. Still upset about Clerks 3, Kevin. How dare you do that to Dante? And number two is I love a good coming-of-age flick. And man, this feels like an old school 1980s John Hughes, Savage Steve Holland coming of age flick. This takes tonal inspiration from John Hughes as well as Savage Steve Holland, who, if you're not familiar with, did Better Off Dead, and he also did Summer Rental. One Crazy Summer. They're all great coming-of-age flicks from the 80s, but this movie definitely takes tonal inspiration from that. It is the story of our titular character, Brian David, which, ironically enough, was going to be Kevin's actual name until his mom discovered that there was already a Brian David in the nursery at the hospital. So she was like, nope, they're gonna confuse the kids. I want to make sure we give him a different name. So that's why Brian David became Kevin Smith. And you know, the movie is amazing. The cast is great. The tone is so great, and it is the story of this young man, Brian David, who finally gets up the nerve to ask out the girl he's been obsessed with for a year. He asked her to go to the 4:30 movie, and it is a story about him and his buddies from school theater hopping one summer afternoon on a Saturday or a Sunday, I forget which. And Kevin Smith shot it at his own movie theater, Smodcastle Cinemas in New Jersey. And the flick feels so legitimate. I don't know how many other people out there can say they knew themselves as well as Kevin Smith knew his younger self, because it feels like a genuine story told by someone who's legitimately looking back and saying, this is what it was like to be young and have your future right out there in front of you. It is such a love letter to growing up in the 80s. I'm equating it to growing up in the 90s because, you know, I was a teenager in the late 90s and early 2000s. So for me, I understood this experience, but I understood it slightly differently. You know, ironically enough, I was getting into Kevin Smith movies around the age that this character in this movie is portrayed. There is no Jay and Silent Bob in this movie. I'm sorry to tell you, if you go to Kevin Smith movies just for Jay and Silent Bob, you won't be seeing them. The movie is beautiful. I mean, I totally cried at the end of it. Yes, you can say what you want about me, but I definitely got emotional at the end of this flick. It was that good. Stay for the mid-credit scene because you'll appreciate it if you're a longtime Kevin Smith fan. The performances are stellar across the board. The quote that stands out to me, which I absolutely loved, was there's a scene in the flick where an usher at this theater is talking with Kevin about movies, and they're discussing filmmakers. And Martha Coolidge gets brought up in this conversation. And if you don't know who Martha Coolidge is, have you been living under a rock? Because she made Valley Girl, Real Genius. Later in life, she made a great comedy with Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon called Out to Sea. Brent Spiner's got a small role in that. And Martha Coolidge is just a great filmmaker. I love her work. So when Martha Coolidge's name was dropped, I was just like, because, yeah. But the quote from this conversation that really stuck out to me was when the usher in question told Brian David, most people go to the movies to escape their life. People like you and me go to the movies because movies make life make sense. And that's how I feel when I watch movies. That's why I started this channel reviewing movies, because I love movies. So if you're a fan of Kevin Smith and you haven't seen the 4:30 movie, and if you're a fan of coming of age movies, check out the 4:30 movie. I'm your host, Cinema Kane. I hope you enjoyed this review of the 4:30 movie. If you did, don't forget to click like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to click that bell notification so you know every time Cinema Kane has a new video uploaded. And don't forget to share this on all your social media platforms in an effort to help me grow my channel. And I'll see you next time at the video store.